Concentration is a game. Elena, Elena, Zaneta, Zaneta. Elena, Elena, Ali, Ali. Elena, Elena, Salah, Salah. Elena, Elena, Sandy, Sandy. Elena, Elena, Amina, Amina. Elena, Elena, Brayo, Brayo. Amela, Elena, Zan, Zan, Zan. Hello kids! Welcome to our Toto Shambani. This is Kitengela International School. Yay!
What are tomatoes and why are they important in our meals?
Now, the tomato is an important fruit for the health of human beings. It contains a lot of vitamin C, one of the fruits that has high levels of vitamin C. And we all know the importance of vitamin C to our bodies. So absolutely it's an important source of vitamin C for our bodies.
How long have people in Kenya been farming tomatoes?
Tomato production in Kenya, is as long as the history of the country, because we know immediately before independence, tomato production was in full swing in the country. But then again, it was done by the settler community. But even after independence, now the Africans, they took up tomato farming.
Where did tomatoes originally came from?
Tomato farming originally originated from the Holland, the Netherlands.
Why did Kenyan farmers start growing tomatoes?
Now, tomato is a high-value crop. Of all of the horticultural produce, I think on a given square area, tomato will give you the best production. So yes, absolutely. Most people take up tomato farming because it's an all year. We all know in our meals, every meal we have must contain the tomato. So there's no struggle with the market for tomato.
What are the key steps involved in planting tomatoes?
Yes, now the key stages involved in tomato production. One, I could talk about the nursery establishment. 50% of your success in tomato farming will come from what kind of nurseries bed you establish. Fully informed by the selection of seeds. The seeds should be suitable for the ecological zone. The seeds should be suitable for the type of soil, because you see your soil and your water should be able to support that variety of tomato that you have chosen. So the second step involved in tomato production, of course, is after successful establishment of the nursery, is the transplanting. Transplanting is important because how do you do the transplanting? If you go and pull your plants, you leave the roots exposed and naked, the plant will struggle to establish. Thirdly, the biggest step involved is that we need to take awareness that the tomato is actually a high feeder. It's like the cabbage. So how do you feed your tomato? So a good compost manure, a good quality planting fertilizer, a good quality top dress fertilizer. Yes.
How do you take care of your tomato plants?
Absolutely, an important question because as we have indicated in so many other fora, tomato is a very delicate crop. And because of that delicacy, it attracts all kinds of diseases, it attracts all kinds of pests. So one of the biggest considerations you do in tomato production to get a good crop is integrated pest protection. Integrated in the sense that the cultural practices, weed control, the kind of spacing, they will greatly to a large extent eradicate both disease and pest incidence in your crop.
What type of weather is best for growing tomatoes?
Well, it depends because with advancement in technology, we can essentially we can use the greenhouses to essentially do tomato production anywhere. But then, as a rule, tomatoes prefer warmer climates as opposed to cold zones.
How do you control pests in this system?
Well, the tomato attracts so many pests. I could talk about the leaf miner. It's a very serious pest. The leaf miner, it attacks the fruit at any stage of growth. There's the aspect of root rot. Root rot, if there is waterlogging, now the roots will die. And if the roots die, you are done.
Do tomatoes need a lot of water to grow?
Not at all. Not at all. So the tomato will need water at the very initial stages. But as it progresses to maturity, it needs controlled watering. Because so much watering will attract all kinds of diseases for the tomato, which you will not control.
How do farmers know when it's time to harvest tomatoes?
The biggest sign that your tomatoes are ready for harvesting, you see, at the earlier stages, the fruit is purely green. Now, the fruit will slowly turn to a pinkish color, like what you can see. The camera can be able to project. Now, then, before it turns the bright red. So this is one of the best indications, the pinkish. The pinkish, it will show you that your tomatoes are ripe. You need to prepare to harvest.
What tools do we use to harvest tomatoes?
Well, we basically use hands, is manual.
What is the market value of tomatoes?
Now, the market for tomatoes has really increased in recent years. The export aspect of the tomato production is very high. Even the local consumption of tomato is very high. So the price range in selling tomatoes, it depends on the season. Yeah, because there's season when there's too much tomatoes in the market. There are seasons where there are so few tomatoes in the market. But on average, the price ranges from 50 shillings to 100 shillings on average.
Can you tell us about the different types of tomatoes?
Yeah, to start with, we have two major types of tomatoes. We have what we call the determinate variety. We also have the indeterminate. So simply put, we have those that go to a much bigger height and they are usually grown indoors. We have usually the shorter ones. These are what we call the determinate and the pushy types, yeah.
Why are tomatoes considered healthy to everyone?
We talked at the very beginning about the high content of vitamin C, and there's also an element, a rare mineral called flavonoids. It's only found in tomatoes. So it's a health crop to human beings as being a great source of the flavonoids and a great source of vitamin C to the human body.
How can we use tomatoes in our meals to make them more delicious?
Oh, now, I think various different people use tomatoes in a different way. But basically, is that you cook the tomato a little bit, and then you are able to add another salad or another vegetable.
What are some of the popular dishes in Kenya that use tomatoes?
I can think of any vegetable you like. I can talk of meat, chicken, matoke, roasted. Yeah, to name just a few.
Do tomatoes have a different color apart from red?
Yes, we have we have those ones. Mostly the indeterminate varieties, they don't attract this bright red. Now, the pink yellowish is when now they are fully ripe. So I think those are the two types of ripening which I'm sure of.
How do tomatoes contribute to the Kenyan's economy?
Now, that's a great question because as we all know, horticulture contributes quite a big margin of our gross domestic product. And of all the horticultural crops we can talk about, tomato is the highest earner in that category. So while I may not give a very definite figure, tomato contributes quite a lot to the overall earnings we get from horticulture. Of course, and tomato brings a lot of foreign exchange, even more than the flower industry. So yeah, it's a great earner to our GDP.
In which country does Kenya export tomatoes to?
Yeah, most tomatoes from Kenya are exported to the Middle East and a few to the United Kingdom and the US markets.
What are some of the challenges in tomato farming?
Thank you so much for that question. On average, of all the horticultural produce, tomato is the hardest to produce. The production of tomato, I think the biggest challenge to growing tomatoes is that most farmers, we don't make an effort to choose a variety suitable to our climate. So you go to the agrovet, you go to the market, you buy seed, which are not suited to your local climate. Secondly, very few farmers have invested in a soil test or a water test for that matter. You can have the right variety, the right cultivar for your locality, but are you sure your soil will support that kind of cultivar or variety? Are you sure your water will be able to support that kind of? I think that's where most of the problems come from. Secondly, That's one aspect. The second aspect I want to talk about the challenges facing tomato farmers is on the side of pest control. Pest control can wipe a whole crop. So I think one of the biggest challenges is that most of our farmers have not invested in extension services to get the kind of expert knowledge they need in the identification of pests, in the identification of diseases. Third part I want to talk about is the aspect of marketing. Most of us, you produce a tomato, yeah, you do everything right, you have a crop, you harvest, is when now you start looking for a market. That's a very, very, very big challenge, because ideally, you should look for a market even before you plant, so that by the time your crop is ready, it has a ready market. So I think in broad categories, I could look at those as the main challenges facing tomato farmers in Kenya. Right now, at this point in time, we want to take a small commercial break. We will be right back. Hello kids, welcome back from the break. And I want to take you through the tomato production. One of the biggest considerations you make in tomato production is the establishment of a nursery. We all know what a nursery is. Yes. Now, in making a nursery, we give consideration to certified seeds. Because you see, if you put any other seeds in a nursery, you will already get diseased seedlings. So we invest a lot in certified seeds from certified sellers, agrovetes. Then I prefer using a raised nursery for the obvious reasons. Then you take very good care of you manure the nursery. Now you are ready to plant your seeds. You water, you do all the management practices, mostly to do with manuring, very good manure. Then you do watering. When you do everything right, now your seedlings are able to germinate. Now, there's a practice called thinning, because once you put the seedlings, they germinate quite a big number, which you don't want. So you do thinning at the nursery stage, so that you remove the weak ones. You see? Then you leave only the strong ones. Now, you take every effort to take care of the health, strong seedlings in your nursery. Now, you water. We usually take the height of 15 centimeters as the ideal height, where we are now ready to do the transplanting of our seedlings now to the main seed bed. Now, one of the most important things you do, the tomato seedling is very weak, very, very weak and fragile compared to its other vegetable sisters. So one of the things we do watering. One of the considerations you make when you want to do the actual transplantation is the time, which time of the day are you going to do the transplanting. We usually prefer very early in the morning or late in the evening, as opposed to midday, because you see the seedling is very fragile. So we want to transplant it when at the cool of the day. Now, you water at the nursery stage. Now you are ready to come to the seed bed and do your transplanting. So one of the things you will consider is the spacing of the tomato. Now, one of the most recommended spacing which we have used here is at least 30 centimeters from plant to plant and at least 1 meter. So once the tomatoes are crowded and you haven't used the ideal spacing, you will have a big challenge in controlling disease and pest infestation in the plants. So we have used the ideal spacing. We have used the 30 centimeters from plant to plant. Then we have used 1 meter against the spacing between the rows. So once you are ready, the practice entails you do a planting hole. A planting hole, quite a good size. We add well-composed manure at the very bottom of the planting hole. Then we do a good planting fertilizer. In our case, we prefer using the diammonium phosphate, which is the DAP. Then you put this size to your fingers, a very small portion of the planting fertilizer. Now, you also add topsoil. Now you completely, you fill the planting hole. Then you do watering at that stage. After you have done your initial watering, you go back to the nursery. You see, you watered because you intended to do the transplanting in that course of period. Now you go. One of the considerations you make when you are transplanting is that the tomato plant should come with its soil. So don't pull, like you want to pull the seedling this way, so that you leave the roots exposed and naked. So you scoop the seed with the soil. When you come here, you have already watered. Now it's your time to actually do the planting. So one of the things you do, you insert the seedling in the planting hole. You see the planting hole has compost, it has fertilizer. You insert. So one of the things you do is that you squeeze at the base, the surface of the soil at this place. You squeeze this way. Then you now do your watering once again, and your plant is now ready to establish. So one of the things in practice, because of the fragility of the tomato seedling, we do what we call pesticide application against, there is a worm that attacks the young tomato seedling. So we do that exactly after 7 days. There are assorted pesticides in the market, which we use to control the armyworm, which cuts the cutworm actually. It cuts the seedling. You get that? Yes. So after that, you continue with the normal practices. Normal practices in terms of weed control. We do the mulching, and we all know the advantages of mulching. We know mulching, we conserve the soil moisture. Then again, being a dry area, it will conserve the little water that we have. And in our case, we are using the drip irrigation system, and we all know the advantages of using the drip irrigation system in terms of water consumption. There's no water wastage using the drip irrigation system. So your plant is now established. There are a couple of management practices which we do in terms of the tomato in order to get a good crop. One of which is, of course, fertilization. One of the things you will understand is that the tomato is a heavy feeder. So you must have a good source of compost or a good source of a good all-round fertilizer. And in my case, I prefer using the NPK 23230. It's a very good fertilizer because at that stage we want to give the tomato plant all the energy it needs in order to give us a good practice. So after we have done the fertilization, there is a very important consideration in tomato farming in the aspect of disease and pest control. As I said earlier on, the tomato is very fragile. So you would have to be prepared because so many organisms, so many destructive organisms can attack the tomato plant. So in my case, we employ what we call the IPM, the Integrated Pest Management Practice. Now, what are the integrated pest management systems? One of the systems is weed control. Weeds will harbor most of the disease pests that will attack your tomatoes. So in our case, of course, we refer to chemical control as a last option in terms of pest and disease control.